Hey guys, so I made the tutorial level. I think I did pretty good on it. It's not bad, in my opinion, not bad at all. Um, Here it is. I think you guys will like it too. It goes over, the combat, platforming, bit of puzzling, everything a tutorial should have. It should teach you the basics, but yet still be true to the plot and whatnot. So it may not look like much from here, but there's it's packed with lore and instructions on. It'll show you how to play the game. So, as we discussed, I believe Mar, who I will be referring to as the character, the main character, for the rest of the video, Mar gets sent down from the precursor ship. Correct me if I'm wrong. To Earth, I guess we're calling it. No, I don't know. Earth. I'm just gonna call it Earth. Sent down to the planet from the ship. So he's like getting sent down from the ship, shooting out of the sky. He shoots towards this big rock pillar, whatever you want to call it. It'll have, no hole in it until he goes through it. So, no hole, he goes through it, lands in the water. There's a hole in it now, like there is now. Crawls up from the water onto this farmland. As you can see, the farmland's destroyed, it's on fire. There's still a bit of crops left, but not much. Some land's destroyed, some land is still, farmland, but it don't have any crops in it because it's been ruined. Sorry. And after he gets out of the farmland, he goes across this little bridge going over the water, and he gets to the housing area where there's like houses and everything, and like shacks or whatever. All the shacks are on fire, and obviously they'll have been partly destroyed. You walk through it for like a bit, and then you get up here. This is where the actual tutorial begins. So first we would start off with a water wheel, which would turn clockwise. They would jump on the platforms on the water wheel. It'd take them up towards this first walkway. They'd walk through the walkway, and this gap would not be here, so they just walk across it normally. But once they got to about here, a big boulder would fall down from about here, fall down, destroy that platform on the walkway, destroy that section of the walkway, but it would leave a tightrope, and it would fall down on this section of the walkway and do this to it, make it kind of destroyed but still kind of attached to the wall. So this would be a point of no return. They couldn't go back to the village. They wouldn't be able to go back the way they came. Here's another water wheel that would use us to we would use that to go up to the next section, except this one would go counterclockwise. So they'd go up, jump on this walkway, and then they'd walk here, like this section right here. And once they got to about here on the platform, this house behind this pillar, I'll talk about this fallen log pillar in a second, but metalheads would burst out of this house, quite a few of them. And here is where we would learn the combat. See, they'd burst out of the house, and there would be a platform held up by some logs and whatnot up here above the house. Once they bursted out, they'd break the platform, like a scaffold. They'd break the scaffolding of the platform. It would fall over, except for this one log that was holding it up. This log would fall in front of the house, so that you'd see that no more metalheads could come out of the house to fight you, and it would also serve as a way to get up to the next walkway. But here's where we would learn the combat. You'd face like 3 to 4 metalheads that burst out of the house and the wall, and you'd learn combat here. You'd learn basic combat, not advanced combat with eco implemented into the combat. You just learn basic combat, the basic controls of combat. After you got done fighting them, you would go up the log that fell up to the next walkway. You could walk around the walkway for a bit, and then you'd get to this section where the boulder fell through, but it left a tightrope. Here we could have, a tightrope that the player could walk across. There's a shack here in the wall. I'll get to that later. Here would be another form of puzzle, kind of. There would be some trapdoors, and one trapdoor in each of the 3 rows are safe. Now obviously we'd have to indicate which one is safe and which ones are not. There's 2 bad ones in each row. So for the sake of examples, I put campfires below the hatch because the smoke will go through the trapdoors. So obviously this one would be safe. Player would look at these next ones. See, this one's not safe. And then once the smoke went up, there we go. They'd see this one isn't safe. They go for this one. They see that smoke is coming out of this one. These ones aren't safe. They go for that one. So here's where we would sort of teach, environmental puzzles, where like you gotta observe your environment and pick the right choice. So 2 bad ones, 1 good one, and they'd have to get through that sort of puzzle. Here is where they would learn about their eco, is at this drawbridge. It's down right now. Now, yellow eco, red eco, blue eco, and I placed it in this order and with these 3 colors so that the players would be able to learn all 3, because I'd think, psychologically the player would want to choose from left to right, so I'd go yellow, red, blue, because blue would be the last one that would activate the bridge. Because if they activated the bridge immediately, they'd probably just ignore the 2 other colors and go straight across without learning them. So the yellow would shoot a projectile out of the wall a little bit above the bridge, about, it's kind of tall up there, but it would shoot a projectile out. It would shoot a bunch of projectiles out. The red would cause a small little sort of explosion type thing at the base of the bridge. The blue eco obviously would activate the bridge, make it raise up, they could walk across. Now, before we move on to the swing bars that would let you go up to the next section of walkway, once the player crossed the bridge, a bunch of metalheads would pop out of this shack back here, and they would start making their way towards them over there. Now, the player obviously would try to reactivate the blue eco to lower the bridge, but that wouldn't work. So, while the player's trying to lower the bridge, the metalheads would make their way across the trapdoors. A couple of them would fall in, a couple of them wouldn't. 2 or 3 might make it across, and then they'd get here. Now, here's where the player learns to use the red and yellow. There may be like 2 tall metalheads, 2 short metalheads. For the 2 tall metalheads, they would use the yellow eco. Shoot the projectiles out, knock them off the bridge into the water. For the 2 short ones, they would know to use the red eco at the base of the bridge to knock them off and kill them. So that's how they would learn the red, yellow, and blue. Then they would make their way up the swing bars, up here, and here would be another arena, a fighting section. But this is where we would teach the advanced combat, where we would learn to use the eco in combat. So, advanced combat would be this section. You just learned about your eco down there, so it'd be fitting to teach the player about using eco in combat up here. Next, they'd go up some stairs a bit, and they'd reach 2 swing bars, 2 horizontal swing bars this time. And I was also thinking maybe since this was here, I could put a platform here. It could be a floating like platform type thing, and there'd be 2 metalheads here shooting at the player from here, and the player would learn to dodge the shots coming from the metalheads up here. That could be a thing we could do. But after they get past the 2 horizontal swing bars, they'd come to a little shimmy section where the character would turn its back to the wall and like slide across the ledge, avoiding the fall. That could be put there. Here, since there's no tightrope, there's nothing we can walk across. Here is where we would teach the dash. I believe we talked about a dash that we would use, like an eco dash. I think we talked about that. Here, they would learn to use that. They'd take a dump. They would jump or double jump, and then they'd have to use the dash to get across the gap. Next part, there would be a precursor platform. Remember, like in Jack 1, Precursor Legacy, there would be some some blue eco platforms that would sort of move around if they were powered up. They would power this up, and it'd be able to move them across this gap. Now, obviously, they're not going to be able to just jump on the platform without powering it and then jump across the other side. No, obviously, this is not to scale. We'd make obviously the gap bigger, the platform smaller, so it would actually the platform wouldn't just let you jump across the gap unpowered. You'd have to power it up and then ride the platform across the gap. So obviously, gap bigger, platform smaller. This isn't to scale right now. Anyway, next would be like 2 small jumps, except when you jumped on this middle section, it would fall down a bit and it'd shake, letting the player know it's about to collapse and fall. So they'd have to quickly jump to the other side, and when they jumped off, the platform would fall. Here's another point of no return. Once we get to here, a buttload of metalheads pop out of this shack. So many you cannot fight them. It would be unwise to try and fight them. So the player and Mar, controlling Mar, would run up the stairs away from the metalheads trying to escape them. And once they got to about here, once they got up the stairs, a cutscene would start. And in the cutscene, Mar would look to his right or left, depending on which way we have the cliff and which way we, whatever. Like, it doesn't specifically have to be on the right side. It could be on the left side, and the chain could be on the right side. We could flip it around. But he'd look to whatever way the shack is. He'd see that there's a bunch of metalheads trying to break out of the shack and get to him. So obviously he can't go in there because there's a bunch of metalheads in there. He'd look behind him, see that there's a bunch of metalheads going up the stairs chasing him. So then he'd look around and he'd see that his only option is a rope or a chain or whatever. A rope that's hanging down off the edge of the cliff. So he'd make a slow-mo jump towards the rope, grab onto it, and swing up towards the top of the cliff as some metalheads fall off that were trying to grab him when he jumped. Now, he'd land up here, he'd be like, oh man, I made it, I'm safe. Then he'd turn around, oh god! There's a huge metalhead just standing right here. And it's like boss level, like boss enemy, huge. 4 legs, a blaster arm, a blaster on one arm, a metalhead blaster, on one arm. And it'd be massive. He's like, man, I can't fight that, I need to run. So he dodges some shots, runs over here, dodging more shots. Once he gets to about here, the metalhead like jumps down behind him, or like in front of him, right around here, So he thinks, oh man, I have to go across this burning, collapsing bridge. So this is where the player regains control. He starts running across the bridge, except he's not going to be running across the bridge facing the way that Mara is facing. The camera would be up here. Remember in like the Daxter level where you got to run away from the spider in Jak 2? Remember that? It'd be like that, where the metalhead would be behind the character would be here, and obviously you'd be running away, and it's chasing you, taking shots at you, but the camera would be moving back, and the character, or the player, would have to jump over and avoid these gaps in the bridge. So, this would be like a big chase, you know, metalhead's right there, the character's right here, the player is running across the bridge with the camera moving back, trying to avoid gaps, jumping over little gaps, and they'd do this for a bit until they got to the end of the bridge. Once they got to about the end of the bridge, after jumping one final big gap, they would a cutscene would start, another cutscene, and in that cutscene, Mar would like fall on his back and like try to crawl away on his back, like all panicky, you know. And it's like he'd stop, be like, "Oh no, this is it." The metalhead is like on the bridge. The metalhead's charging up, a massive shot to take out Mar, and all of a sudden you hear, creak, snap, pop, and the bridge falls down. It collapses. The bridge completely destroys under all that weight. It falls down. The big boss metalhead falls down that you were running away from, down back into the bottom of the cliff, the bottom of the valley, and the bridge is destroyed, you know. And that's it. At this point in the cutscene, after that, Mar gets up, turns around, and sees the vast world in front of him that he has to purge of the metalheads, and he has like a look of shock and awe, like, oh my goodness, you know, kind of face, you know. Except when he gets up and does that, the camera isn't going to be facing out this way, it's going to be facing towards him. So he's going to walk towards the camera that's facing him, and once he walks through it, like once the camera comes into contact with like his chest, you know, chest level, it's gonna do a quick switch around, and it's gonna start panning out slowly, like slowly up and slowly back, as you see him walking forward towards that walkway, and the camera's gonna pan back and up, and it'll show the entire world. And then there'd be a title card in, you know, the orange Jak and Daxter style font. There'd be a title card of our title, Haven's Cradle, in like bright ocel orange, in like the Jak and Daxter font, you know the font. And that would be the title card. And at that point, after the title card is shown, the camera would move back behind the player, and then the player would make a jump into this cave that's below him, because that's the only place he has left to go. Now obviously he's not going to land on stone. It's going to be a long hole, and there's going to be a massive underground lake that he lands in. And that's going to be where our next hub is. That's going to be where our first hub is. After the tutorial, you know, he's going to jump down, land in this massive underground lake, and at the edge of one side of the lake there's going to be a town. There's going to be an underground town at one edge of the lake, and that will be the first hub, the first like survivor camp where you meet people and, you know, do some tasks for them, like I don't know. But anyway, there'd be different levels you could branch off into, You know, there might be a level that you could go into at the left side of town. There might be a level that you can go into at the right side of town. There might be some wooden walkways on the ceiling of the big cavern they're in with the massive underground lake that you got to do something up there. And there could be like, to get to the next hub, you have to, there's uh, a cave that's in like the center of town, um, and you gotta unlock enough you gotta get enough collectibles or whatever, or do enough tasks to go through that cave to get to the next hub, wherever that'll be. You know, whatever. This will be the first hub, a town on the edge of a massive underground lake. So yeah, that's the tutorial level. Mark comes down from the sky, crashes to that pillar, goes through the village, makes his way up the platforms, the walkways, learning, you know, the combat puzzling and platforming, you know, and then there at the end there's a big chase across the bridge, boom, chase done. Big title card right here in the cutscene. Big title card. You can see the whole world. Player makes a jump down into a cave. Cave leads to a really huge underground lake with a town around it, and that'll be your first hub. That'll be our first hub level. We'll do, you know, and we can go from there. Now, obviously, we haven't discussed what the first hub is going to be, but I thought, you know, it's kind of convenient that that cave is there. It's given me an idea for a really big underground cavern lake thing with a town around it. You know, I figured, why not? That could be our first hub. It's just an idea. But yeah, first tutorial level. I think I did pretty good. I hope y'all like it. Um, if there is any changes you think could be made, I could always go back into the world, experiment with your suggestions, and we'll see what goes on from there.